guys, this is Paul from ProPhysique.com. In today's video, I'm just doing an introduction. We're going to do a segment from our podcast with Dr. Bill Campbell. Laurin, Conlin, and myself interviewed Dr. Bill Campbell, who is working on physique enhancement, exercise science, over here. I'm pointing in the direction of University of South Florida. So lots of cool insights into the research that's going on. You're going to want to hear about some of the studies that are going to be coming out. And you're also going to want to hear about Dr. Campbell's unique contest diet where he ate candles.
Me?
Yeah. You told me you worked out with Holly or Dalen Bailey or somebody.
Well, yeah, everybody knows. DLB is like a monster with shit like that. I don't know how that lady trains. To be completely honest.
That's how when I train with Doug. I think I
can't do that.
When he tells me what he wants to do, I think he's joking. One time he's like, we're going to do legs today. We're going to start with 10 sets of 30 on leg press. I was like, are you joking around? It's like, not even German volume does that. And we did 10 sets of 30. I didn't walk for 3 days.
Yeah, like I am somebody who can't do that.
And we did other lifts. Like some people just, I think they, obviously he's built up to that, but still like.
Well, certain people are more injury prone. Certain people have, different, just the way that they're like anatomically positioned. Like, that's the thing too. Some people can handle a lot of X, but not a lot of Y, just based on how their structure is. And you can't change that. Doesn't matter how good or bad your movement pattern is. That's just going to be the reality. So the one cool thing with physique sports is that you don't have to do one thing or the other. Right. It's really about, doing whatever works. Like obviously if you're doing like a performance-based, sport.
Like a powerlifting.
Yeah, powerlifting, weightlifting, CrossFit, like that, you have to kind of do certain things.
Right.
But with bodybuilding, we have the luxury of, switching things around based on you, the individual. And that's one thing that research is never going to be able to show us because that would just be like 1,000 case studies.
Yeah, but you also can't research what the judges are looking for, right? So it's like, it makes sense. The bodybuilding is not, by definition, like a sport like those sports where you're scored based on how much weight you lift, how much you weigh. We're more like, oh, you got a little more quad sweep this year. You look better. Like you can't.
Yeah, you can't really measure
that's
that.
That's not quantitative. Or maybe it is. I don't know. So what gets you out of bed? What's exciting right now? Because I know you always got something crazy going on. You're putting a mask on your wife's face. You're checking metabolic rates.
I was like, did I miss something when I went to the bathroom?
I intentionally said that because I knew it would be shocking. But you told that story in class one day. You said, you had the metabolic cart and, you're supposed to be fasted and rested. I mean, when we go in for the metabolic testing, we drive over and you're like, well, even you shouldn't be driving. So I took that out of the the equation for my wife. So she woke up and had a mask stuffed on her face and couldn't move for 15 minutes.
She said, "Can I pee?" No. Well, let me get a pan. And then, let me say one other study that we're doing now is, you talked about case studies. So we have a case study series where we're taking about 10 bodybuilders, bikini competitors, physique athletes, and we're measuring everything about them going into their show. And then after the show, they are self-selecting if they want to do a recovery diet or a diet refeed. So I'll define them as we're defining them in our study.
Yeah.
If it's a recovery diet, they're going to gain weight more rapidly. If it's a reverse diet, they're going to take a slower, more moderate approach to gaining weight after their show.
Can you define rapid and moderate, like percentage of body weight? Because that's where when I looked up, because I was curious what the difference was. And I kind of had a misconception for what the recovery diet, which was popularized by 3D Muscle Journey. They kind of coined the term.
Yes.
Not kind of, they did coin the term. But I didn't understand fully what they meant by that. And I had assumed wrong. So what are the parameters you're using to define recovery?
So I want to mention my student that's designing this study. His name's James Longstrom. He is in our master's program. And we exactly what you said we did. We kind of said we have the Lane Norton who popularized a reverse diet. So let's look at that, and then what we called the Eric Helms approach, which was the recovery diet. I don't remember. We had hours and hours of discussion.
Good. As long as it's defined, I think that's what
it is defined. Okay. I just don't remember where we settled. And I think it is based on a percentage of weight regain per week.
Yeah.
For recovery,
so the
that's
recovery,
how they do it.
The recovery diet, as I read it, me and Stephen Beaugrand, Another shout out for another grad student from your school. Did a podcast when Laurin just stopped showing up to work, so we had to do one without her.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Laurin just had to travel around the world, and I was itching to talk on my microphones that I paid a lot of money for. So we talked about the reverse.
I was like, well, somebody listen to me, God damn it.
Recovery diet. And what I learned from that was that the recovery diet was essentially you gain 5 to 10% of your body weight in the first 4 weeks. And when I started crunching the numbers, I'm like, that's pretty close to a reverse diet. If you stay closer to that 5%, it's not, there's not this like black or wine, like you're doing it one way wrong, one way right. Their philosophy was, put a little weight on and then kind of, and so, yeah, I don't think.
What they don't agree with is trying to stay stage lean.
Right.
So that was what a lot of the air quotes reverse diet, when it became popularized, was theorized to be. Hey, you got stage lean, let's add calories while keeping stage lean.
Yeah.
And they were like, no. If you're actually stage lean, you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
So that was their take on it, was, hey, here's like a quantitative amount, gain this much, and then kind of go from there. But
do you guys think that most people, unless let's say they're a very serious physique athlete, they're going to want to stay stage lean a lot longer, correct? The general physique competitor, or no?
I don't know any that want to stay stage lean after they've actually gotten stage lean.
Yeah, after you've gotten stage lean, nobody's
No,
stage.
okay, so you're saying
No. The only
Like a
people that
very
want to stay
small
stage lean
amount.
are people that are doing another show in a short time frame, 2 weeks.
Or they're not, or they just got lean and it was like maybe their first season and they're like, hey, this is great, but like not like super peeled, ready for a show. I none of my clients do that, and I don't recommend it either. And I think once you educate people on why that's not a good idea.
Yeah, I think the reason I want to do the podcast, because there's a lot of pushback sometimes about, I don't want a reverse diet, I want to do a recovery diet. I'm like, the reverse diet isn't one thing. It's not. It's just the idea of metabolically positioning yourself to eat more food and coming out of a show. It doesn't have to be slow. Like,
it's the same thing. Like, it's like how we talk about with flexible dieting, or it fits your macros. You know what I mean? Like, people have like this thought about what it is, or clean eating.
Have to eat junk.
Yeah, it's like, or whatever. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, everybody likes to put it in these little compartments because that makes it easier for our brain to remember it. But really, the goal of after a show is, okay, you need to gain back some weight, you need to get your hormones back, you need to be able to sleep, you need to be able to recover. And if you're actually lean, you're going to want to do those things. So, how many people you said? There's about 10?
I think we got about 10. And another cool thing about this is we're measuring leptin levels, T3, T4, and I think one more. And I need to thank you, Paul. You're paying for some of these subjects to get this blood work done. That is not cheap. Lane Norton is paying for some of these subjects to get their blood work done. Thank you, Lane. That is the most expensive part of this study, and it's going to give us a lot more.
Well, if you're thanking me, I'm going to have to thank MASS, the monthly application of strength sport, because I get like affiliate money from them, and I basically said from the beginning, whatever money I get from them, I'm going to give to you at USF to do research, and it's been hard to give money to you. So
the bureaucracy makes that tough.
Yeah, so this was one way I could kind of start investing in what's going on at USF. So
hormones are so expensive too, and it's so valuable for research. People don't understand how valuable blood markers are, but it is hands down the most expensive thing, because once you have the equipment, you can use that over and over and over again. But blood work is each person, each time you measure it, you got to pay for it. And even with the saliva, like we were talking about, like that's expensive as shit. And the blood is far better, but there's the other, thing of you have to go to the place and this and that. So having funds for that is so key. And people, really, I think, underestimate how hard it is. Like, why don't they just research that? And it's like,
the hardest.
Well, if you only knew.
Your armchair quarterback researcher.
Yeah, the hardest thing. So for those that aren't aware, I'm actually involved in this study. It just worked out. The timing was good for me. I was doing a show around this time. So you go in a week before your show and you get all the work done, and then you go in 4 weeks after your show and 8 weeks after. Well, when I signed up for it, I thought this is going to be awesome. But when you have to get up at 5:30 in the morning to get over there for the testing so that you can do a strength test, a metabolic cart test, a body composition test,
a water test.
Yeah, a water test, and then drive across the street and go get your blood drawn. It took a couple hours out of my life, and it's like, wow, this is really a commitment.
Yes.
So hats off to all the people. And one of my clients drives up from Naples. She's doing the study, Deraja. So shout out to you, Deraja.
Yeah, I love when that happens. You're like, oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for the study on so many levels because it's just going to be data. It's just going to be information that's going to be, put back into the sport, because all this is the stuff that Lane was doing 5-6 years ago, and people are like, there's no such thing as a reverse diet. There's no literature. So now it's actually becoming part of the conversation.
Now it's actually in academia with this
that's
study.
What I mean. Yeah, in academia. So that's the exciting thing, is that actually to think that the things that we're doing in the sport might actually have a positive impact on how people
approach things afterwards.
Yeah. And James and I have talked about this. It's likely going to be that we're going to have to divide the groups up who gain weight fast and slow. It's not going to be a completely great, perfect design. These 5 people did exactly a reverse diet. These 5 people did
I'm really curious to see if there's some outliers.
Sorry, me and Paul are dying over here.
Yeah, I just had the plague.
I'm trying not to cough.
I'm just curious if there's somebody that put on 25 pounds in 2 weeks. Like most of us did after our first show. You did a show. How fast did you gain weight after your first show?
Pretty fast. Yeah,
Dr. Campbell was drinking candles, so I'm pretty sure he went back to eating all of the real food.
You look leaner than I remember seeing you. So
no, well, I'm not.
No?
You're like, I wore black to be slimming. It's my trick.
He hasn't shaved his arm hair in a while. I can't tell.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your bodybuilding show experience. So how much weight did you lose for that show?
I lost 31 pounds. So I went to the stage at 183, and I started at, what would that be? 214 is before I started.
Please talk about the candles.
What do you mean?
So this was 1999. So that was when this show was. I followed a cyclical ketogenic diet. So I would be keto, very low carb, 5 days out of the week, and then I would.
So what's very low carb? Under 50?
Yeah, I was under.
Those trace carbs or something?
Trace, yeah. Okay. Eggs, gram here, gram there. Cheese, gram here, gram there.
Oh, Jesus. Eggs. Yeah, I don't count there's no carbs in eggs. Yeah. What kind of eggs are you eating?
Oh, cheese, whatever. Oh. There was a couple of grams here or there. Well, it was the ketchup I was putting on the eggs.
Oh, there we go.
So this was 1999.